Before we dive into our great conversation today, wanted to give a shout out to Dre Reed Spooky and Brooklyn Attic Books. In June, anyone that is in New York City or would be willing to travel, June 20th from 12 to 5 p.m. is the New York City Pride Indie Horror Book Fair. Over 30 LGBTQ plus authors, publishers, vendors will gather at TVI in Ridgewood's Queens, which is just steps off the L train. Come celebrate Pride Month with your literary horror besties. Festivities will include drag performances, movie screenings, carnival games, and raffle prizes. Food served by the award winning Luther's New York City, famous fried chicken sandwiches, and photo ops in TVI's infamous Room 237, the Shining themed lounge. There will also be an after party at the amazing bookstore Twisted Spine with readings from a few of the authors that will be attending the fair. This is hosted by friend of the pod, Dre Reed Spooky, and tickets are only $5. So make sure you're following Dre Reed Spooky and Brooklyn Attic Books. Click on the link in their bios to get your tickets.
Welcome to Horrifically Well Read, Blood, and Said. I know you don't usually hear me introducing, but it is a special episode where our co host, Adam Allen, my husband, actually has written a book and just never talks about it. So thankfully, we have some good friends here, fellow authors, who were kind enough to join me to help interview Adam. And they're going to predominantly be the interviewers for this. So tonight we have Renee Thomasin and Laurel Hightower and Haley Newlin. And so I would love to turn it to each one of you to introduce yourself, name your books or what you're working on, and why you wanted to be here to support Adam. And then we'll get into Adam's book, which is Do Better.
Oh, yeah.
Renee, you can go first. You're in the top of my square.
Okay. Hi, y'all. My name is Renee Thomasin. I am a baby horror author. I have some short fiction out. And Adam is a friend of mine. And so I said to him once, like, you need to be a guest on your own podcast because you have this incredible novella out. So here we are.
Awesome. Thank you for the encouragement. Really appreciate that. Laurel.
I'm Laurel Hightower. I'm a horror author. I've written a few things. The most recent thing that just came out was the reissue of Crossroads with Shortwave. And the reason I want to be here is because Adam is an incredibly supportive member of the community. Like when we started getting to know each other and everything, like both of you, it was marvelous to meet you and everything. And then when you gave me a copy of the book and I just like flew through it and I was like, you need to be interviewed because not just for like because I fully believe like this community survives and thrives by supporting one another, but also like I have questions.
I
And
love
it
it.
was so good. And this, anyways, I'll wait to get into it. But the perspective was fantastic, and I want to know more.
I love it. I love it. And you've been on our show. We've loved having you on. And
All three of you.
I know all three of you have, but you have made Adam feel incredibly claustrophobic with the long, low whistle and lots of good things. And Haley, before we got on, you're like, are you allowed to curse? And I said, of course, we always encourage it. But you mentioned that you already have notes in the margin of fuck these men. So I'm really looking forward to this. But please introduce yourself and why you would like to do this.
First, okay, so this is Haley Newlin. I have to tell Laurel, I declared The Long Low Whistle the scariest book I read last year.
Okay.
So thank you for some images I will truly never forget.
Well,
Laurel, Renee, Adam, I respect all of you so much as writers. So it's really cool to be here with all of you. Like, this is such a
This is a
dream.
good group.
This
I
is
love
a
it.
dream team, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, listeners, we're gonna go on rants. We're gonna go on tangents. This is a wild group, but
There will be
it's
so many F bombs.
yeah,
Yeah,
yes,
the
for
best.
real.
Wonderful.
But I should introduce. My name's Haley Newlin. I just released a 1959 drive-in themed horror novella called "The Film You Are About to See," which is based on my love of Vincent Price, William Castle, and really just drive-in theaters and just trying to introduce them to new audiences and remind horror fans how cool it is to be at a drive-in and to witness these movies. My One of my initial connections with Adam was just kind of him letting me talk at him about Vincent Price, and we just became buddies as he went through, like, Vincent Price's entire catalog. So this is just really cool, and I'm so proud of you, and your heart is so evident in this book, how I know you, so It's
This is
awesome to be
awesome.
here.
This is awesome. You guys are an awesome support group of friends, and we were gonna have Alyssa Alessio on with us, but she's somewhere out in a graveyard getting ready to stab vampires.
So
But
Gotta
you
be
are
done,
here with
you
us in
know.
spirit, Alyssa.
I
But
also wanted to say this will be our 100th episode as
Oh,
well.
fun.
Yeah,
Oh, yay!
very exciting.
yes, yes, yes. It's so exciting.
100.
So, Adam, we're gonna do the same thing to you that we make all of our people do when they come on is let's hear you pitch your book. How would you pitch it to a reader? How would you position it?
Okay. So do better is basically, what if there was an entity, demon, monster, whatever you want to call it, that fed on toxic masculinity? In 2025, when the book came out, and even more so in 2026, that would be a really well fed entity. And if it's well fed, just how powerful can it get? It tells it through the story of two estranged brothers. One more obviously toxic masculine behaviors, one less, but still problematic, even if he doesn't quite realize it, and how they have to come together to try to sort of defeat the monster within to beat the monster that's outside too.
How to do? How do you think you gonna you 3 ladies, you get the show. I'll wrap it up here at the end, but I want you girls
Yeah, I
to
think that's accurate.
I think so too, and honestly, when I call them doppelgangers, like the dark
Mhm,
entities throughout.
mhm.
And
Same.
I made a note. I annotated, sorry, I'm a mess.
Hey, no way.
Annotated.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah, sorry, let's just pause. I have the book
Yeah.
right here
Talk
in
about,
my notes.
Oh my gosh. I
But
love
I
it.
literally noted that to me, the doppelgangers felt like a physical manifestation of toxic masculinity. And the whole thing
yep.
is that they kind of reflect these things back to these men. And so, what I love about that idea so much is men are never really willing to take the responsibility or to hear the explanations behind why some of this is toxic. So for you to kind of put it into this entity that's feeding off of it, it kind of forces them to look at it and say, I have to deal with this. I have to acknowledge this. Where right now it's just, it's the dismissal and then it leads to gaslighting. And so I thought it was really powerful to put like a reflection of what that toxic masculinity is, even if people think it's really buried or they're not as bad as some other men, that it's still there. So that really stood out to me.
Yeah, and I what I loved was how and I think I messed before I really had a grasp on where exactly you were going with it and what they meant. I think I even messaged you and was like, "Well, that just scared the fuck out of me," because they are terrifying. And I think that like first of all, really well done because we're all horror fans and we like those scares. But to piggyback off what Haley was saying, to have that reflected back on him, I think a big part of it, and I wrestle with this with trying to communicate this to men in my life and just trying to understand why there's this disconnect, and it's because men aren't afraid of women the way that women are afraid of men. We don't
Mhm,
represent for the most part that same kind of threat with the obvious caveats, sort of thing. To have the male characters in this book have to come face to face with this thing is scary. I am at risk from this. Like it works on so many levels because it's A, putting them in the position of, what they are often reflecting onto other people. And it's also like it just helps, I don't know, it just helps that understanding of like the toxic masculinity is frightening in and of itself because it is not only a risk to women, it is a risk to the man themselves. So I
Mhm.
just think it works like visually on so many levels. So I was really impressed with that.
I really appreciate that, and I think that, like, as I was writing it, you kinda have that thing where we've talked many times about horror being this mirror that, like, doesn't blink,
Mm.
right? Like, we look at the ugly stuff and we keep looking at it, and this idea that when you're kind of in it manifests literally like this rot that is whether it's toxic masculinity, whether it's this, like, unquenched, thirst for power that really is behind it a lot of times, and to stay in that power. The scariest thing is yourself, and they have to look at themselves and they have to see, I am a threat, I am scary. They have to see themselves the way that sort of, most often women have to see them, right? And they become that same threat and have to realize like I am that, and now I have to realize it because I am it to myself right now.
Yeah, that's very effective.
That shows up with Chad. He's the driver, right?
Mm.
Yes.
His self-harm and then harm to
Mhm.
other people. So, this is my second reread. So I knew the plot, but I wanted to, like, look at it more closely.
Mhm.
And so I tracked, like, my sticky notes were tracking when the doppelgangers were showing up, right? It's always in the instance of either this real I'm lonely or someone is telling me I should end my life or something. So I just think it was interesting. Like Chad isn't quite self aware, of the harm that he can do. He just sort of acts on it without thinking. That to me also speaks to the reality of many men.
I think that, it's I think most famously talked about with like Nazis in World War II, like the banality of evil. And I
Mhm.
think that Chad kind of represented that. And to me, that's like things that are really scary sometimes are when it just like in the middle of a conversation, someone will say something and you realize you're not safe with them. And you
Ugh,
thought you
yes.
were, and you're maybe like you are like in the book where it's like, this person's driving me around. Like I'm stuck here. Like I can't do anything about it. And, I wanted obviously the person doing that to be representative of this, but also now through these characters, someone that usually isn't in that powerless position has to reckon with being in that position and how that feels and realizing like this doesn't feel good. And sort of kind of, I think when reading it, my hope is that people that are in that position a lot kind of feel seen through it, but then people that aren't realize that's what that feels like, and it really fucking sucks and doesn't have to happen.
Yeah, yeah.
Take a shot, say
Do we have to
Yeah.
pause for that, or
Well, I think that what it is, like, when the book like, the reason I wrote it in the first place, like, where it came from is that, like, thinking again about, like, it's the James Baldwin quote is, like, to be paraphrase it is to be relatively awake is to be angry all the time to if you're Black in
Mhm.
America. And now it's like, if you have any just ounce of empathy and you live in
yes.
America, you're angry all the time, right?
Yeah.
And so I found myself, like, just so mad every day when I woke up. I look at the internet, I'm mad. I go to sleep mad, and I was like, "So I have to do something with this," and that's really where, like, the book initially came from. There's a really, like, early form of it, which was called Not All Women, that I was playing on that idea and the trope and the idea in that, and I think it's gonna be a short story that I'll keep too, but it was started as a zombie story, but it's a zombie story where only women that had been murdered come back and kill the person that murdered them. It's like a targeted zombie almost kind of thing, and, like, it just this kind of branched out from that, and it was kind of rewritten as a more sort of, like, more focused narrative, I think, but, like, that was that idea is it's like, I'm just so tired of justice never coming, right?
I would like to go ahead and request that that short story that you do write that because I wanna read the hell out of it. That sounds amazing.
Same.
Oh yeah.
Can
It
I
does exist, so
ask
I'll put it somewhere.
because I've
Yeah.
yeah. I'm just ordering you to write things, no big deal. So what I've been wanting to ask since I read this was I've been curious about what the reception has been like from men. And I don't, again, like I'm not sure whether the kind of person who would give you any blowback from it is the kind of person who would actually read the book. But, maybe from the premise, whether you'd received any kind of like, I don't know, kind of rude commentary, anybody protesting, anybody, doing the kind of normal things they do online in the comments.
My guess would be none of them have read it because I have not heard anything either way. There has not been, like, a strong reaction. I would hazard to guess
It's
and, like
probably
yeah,
it's
go
probably
ahead.
because they know this girl group right here would fight them.
That's hilarious.
I appreciate that. My guess would be that they would take it literally as just, like, scary monster, and not kind of
Yeah.
think about what it would mean, like, on a larger scale than that, I think would be my
Hmm.
guess.
Well,
Well,
I
I
think
mean,
that you did have an earlier version of this book, and you didn't. Listen.
Actually my yeah, sorry.
What you want to say it?
In the earlier version that I had, with a lot of the same themes and things like that, I had a couple of beta readers that were actually female that told me I really shouldn't be writing about women's issues. So, yeah, so there was, like, early on some of that pushback.
But I was like, love a self-aware man, right? I'm
yeah,
thinking like Grady Hendrix, where he's writing about
But he gets a lot of shit,
the
so
birthing scene, and it's like, but he did the research and whatever, and it's like, I appreciate that as a man that he's trying to, like, you often say, I do my best. Like, I try to do every day to not be a toxic person. Like, I got to fight against it, sort of because you're prone to some of these things, like with being a man,
well,
and
I wonder,
you try to check your shit a lot, but that doesn't mean you're perfect. But
yeah.
to me, I think you are. But I'm just saying, I think if you're trying to do these things where you're trying to showcase it, like, I didn't understand the pushback personally. Like, why wouldn't you want someone to be advocating for these things and saying, "We have to do better as a group of
And
men."
just to push back a little bit on that, and I kinda said this before, it's like, it isn't hard to not be a piece of shit. Like, I don't think it really is. Like, it's not
Can we
hard
get that
to
on stickers?
Hey, I
like
always ask for merch
I'm
during
so
this time.
serious. We
I
need
mean,
do better stickers, and that's what it's gonna say.
a piece of shit,
but
love
it
it.
isn't. Like, I've never been in a situation where I was like, "How can I demean the person that I'm talking to?" And I don't care who that other person is. Whereas, like, other people, it seems like that is, like, their goal in any, like, interaction, especially with women or people of colors. It's like, I am better like, obviously, I'm talking about white men, unfortunately, the demographic I belong to. Like, it always seems to be that case, like, the assumption is that I'm better than you, like, "You're lucky I'm even talking to you," is, like, this feeling that so many people give off, and, like, I'm just, like, disgusted, and the other thing that I will say is that being a white man, they love to come up and talk to me and say things thinking that I will agree with them, and so, like, they can say whatever they want, like, as a group, they fucking suck. I'm like, "Wait, you're going around thinking that? Like, and you just said that to me?" And it's like, "Oh, I was just kidding. Oh," I'm like, "No, fuck you. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you?" Whether it's, I tell the story. I work in teaching now, which is obviously a historically female-dominated profession, and then I was in banking, which is also really female-dominated. My manager was a woman, and this guy came up to the line to ask a question, and she was the one that happened to be next, and when he saw it was her, he's like, "No, I wanna talk to him. I talk to men when I talk about my finances." And I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, come on over." And he asked the question, I was like, "Hold on, let me ask my manager." And I went over to her, and I was like, "This guy has this question, I have no idea what I'm doing. Can you come help him?" And, like, he just
Nice.
turned so red, like, and I'm just like, "You don't have to be like that." I'm like, "Can you please, like, say no to whatever he wants to?" And that's just so often, like, the way that it would go. And so, this is many, many years of experience of like, "No, you are exactly what people say that you are, and you get defensive and you get angry, but only because it's true."
Yeah. Can I say something that actually reminds me of a specific scene that I have saved? Okay, so I actually read this chapter twice because I thought this was pretty profound. When you have the phone call with Max and Justin's dad, do
Yes.
you remember that scene? Okay, so they're talking about a potential, like a suicide note, and possibly like Justin not being safe, Justin not being mentally well. And there's just so much, like, it's so apathetic. It's such a strange and kind of uncomforting exchange between
Mhm.
father and son, and we were talking about, how sometimes, like, you see people and you think, like, their goal is, like, to demean the other person. But there's also just such a large group of men who I feel like in some way that has become the default setting. And
Mhm.
so that phone call kind of made me realize, like, Justin might be the way he is in a large part because of who his father is and the way his father can't handle his own fucking emotions and won't take a fucking second to process them. He'd rather dismiss them and then just gaslight the fuck out of everybody. And so I think that that kind of shows too that for some men, one reason why they can't even begin to acknowledge that they're being a piece of shit is because this was just ingrained in them so early on. And I'm not saying that's an excuse. I'm saying that's how much this toxicity exists in our culture is it's just constantly passed down from generation to generation until you find that one man that says no more. This is bullshit. We're not doing this anymore. And that's kind of what Max is. So I'm curious what it was like kind of showing this toxicity through those different kinds of relationships, father and son, brothers, and yeah.
Yeah, my dad is not quite as overtly horrible as their dad is, but it is the same kind of thing. It is very much an apathy. It's a very much like, I'm here to go to work. Like this parenting thing, this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing. Like I take care of the finances or whatever it is. And like, other than that, it's like, what do you want from me? Like I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. And it is obviously like a cycle that's been passed down of like what it is, but it's really fear, right? Like, they're afraid. Like, there's nothing easier than going to work and doing a job, the same thing every day and not having to worry about anything else. Like go ahead.
And I was just gonna say the way that Haley said gaslights the fuck out of
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, that is somewhat of what your dad would
Mhm.
do.
Oh, yeah.
Get angry, kind of be like, "You're making this my problem. I don't like that
Mhm.
you made it my problem," which is kind of the way the phone call went with Justin too, of
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 settings, like, I don't care, or I'm gonna scream at you until you stop doing the thing that I don't like.
And you've made my life uncomfortable now,
Mhm.
Yeah,
and yes.
feelings are like a, what is it? Like, they're not inconvenient. That's,
Mhm.
like, been the attitude from men for so long, is that feelings are inconvenient, so then when they're around somebody who is good at expressing their feelings, usually women, then they gaslight the fuck out of them, or then they have a son who's not a piece of shit and wants to
Mhm.
consider other people's feelings and wants to consider women, and then they gaslight them and say, like, "You're causing problems. Why do you have to make things hard?" Like, or they gaslight you until they can get you angry enough to leave, you know?
Yeah, and they hide and they say that this is toughness or, bravado and
Yeah.
any of that kind of stuff, but really what it
So
is
not.
they are the thinnest skinned, and we see that right now with MAGA, like,
Just the
they are the
smallest fucking
oh,
men.
set them off, like, so quickly because the very idea that something they did could have been wrong is so like, hits at the core of, like, this idea of who they've made themselves that even looking at that for a second, like, crumbles their foundation so much that they can't handle it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that also goes to show the way, we talked about how this toxicity is passed, but it's not only just the negative like, talk about women, it's not only things like that, it's also that men sort of have this attitude with other men that they are better than women, that they are
Mhm.
superior than women, and we see that even in just, I'm a huge baseball fan, and one of my favorite Cubs players just had a really icky public
Ugh,
incident where he responded to a woman shouting at him, as a lot of fans do, and I'm sure it's frustrating, but his response was, like, the angriest response, like, the
uh,
angriest people have seen him before, and
yeah.
then the word choice was so female specific, and so it's just that just kinda made me think of that. Did I even finish my point? Sorry, sometimes I start sentences and I don't know where I'm going.
Well, I
I feel
think,
like what you're saying
Haley
is that
too, like
it's
sorry, Renee.
simmering all the time,
Oh, yeah.
right? Like, it's always simmering for the Cubs person to just be able to throw that out, it has to, like, be there. And I've
Yes.
even seen people before
Yes.
say, "I'm not even sure that men like women, I
Mhm.
think they just wanna have sex with women, and they just wanna be
Yes.
bros."
Yeah, and that's like I don't know about you all, but that's been one of the things that's been so crushing about the past year is seeing things and realizing that as a gender, how fucking hated we are.
Mm,
Like,
It's scary,
yeah,
it's infuriating, but
yes.
it's scary.
It is frightening because it's like you said, it's simmering just under the surface. So that was like I mean, a lot of time I'm not saying that that means that it encapsulates who that man is, that he can't learn, from it and as, Adam succinctly says in his title, do better. But it's terrifying and the fact that so many of them have such a hard time facing that aspect of themselves because what struck me too, and I think that you do a great job of encapsulating to like some of the other issues here. You've mentioned that it's not just a matter of in interactions with women, but it's interactions with people of color. And, when Max is dealing with his best friend and his best friend's mom, and they're kind of addressing, like, hey, this is our experience, like that stuff really struck me because, I'm a woman, but I'm a white woman. And there have absolutely been times in my life that I am come face to face with the fact that I have been committing a microaggression. And God damn, that hurts.
yeah,
It hurts when you realize it, but if it hurts me to realize I've done it, how the hell much more have I been hurting people by doing it? And,
absolutely.
I think it does a lot of times, Adam, come back to what you said about like, you've never been in a conversation and said, I want to demean this person. And so
Mhm.
for a lot of us, we're like, we don't want to cause harm. So if we realize, we are told that we're causing harm, we make an effort to back off from that and say, shit, that was, you have to be more concerned about the empathy of the harm that you're causing than you are about your personal hurt feelings over having it pointed out. And I think that some of it's a maturity aspect. I think, it's like I'm raising an 8-year-old and he is yeah, I'm biased, but he's very emotionally intelligent. But I see certain things, where as children are learning, as they're developing, they shy away initially. They want to run away from the idea that they have done something bad. So they'll make a
Yes.
lot of excuses. They won't look directly at you. And what I keep trying to help him learn is like, hey, mistakes are normal, but that uncomfortable feeling under your skin or in your belly isn't going to go away because you deny it. It's going to
Mm,
go away when you realize and make repairs on what's happened. And the sooner because I don't think I learned that till maybe 30.
yeah.
Sorry, everyone who knew me until then, because I mean, it's a hard lesson to learn, but it's
Mhm.
one that's important, and none of us are exempt from that necessity.
That's great. Like, I think that one of the things, even just having done this horror bookstagram thing for whatever year and a half, almost 2 years it is now, um, is taking a look at even the people that you would put in the corner of saying, okay, this is an ally, quote unquote, whatever that means. There are so many people that are an ally until it could take something from them. And then suddenly their tune changes, or we don't have to go that, you don't have to do that. And I think that Rebecca brings this book up a lot, how racism hurts everyone, right?
Yes, I love
And
that book.
yeah, and misogyny hurts everyone. And I,
Mhm.
I think about all the time, like one of the things that I'm just devastated by all the time is the amount of art, because that's what I love, especially novels, that we never got because Black women weren't allowed to write, women weren't allowed to write. All of these people were not allowed to express themselves. And they're like, all the classics are white by white men. Well, no shit. When they're the only ones allowed to, and they're the only ones taken seriously for hundreds of years, that's what's going to happen. But take a look around right now, and it's not even great. But where's all the great books and horror coming from? It's from women. To not read them, as so many white men don't do, they're the ones losing out. And like, I try to like voice that as much as possible with whatever platform I have. But you're only hurting yourself because you're reading bullshit and you're existing in a world where you're not getting the best of it. And if you don't want that, then fine. But why do you have to fucking hurt everyone around you too? And I think that's like what I just continually am devastated by all the time.
You're doing a good job with that. I mean, I have a question for later about because I've intentionally tried to read mostly female writers the past, year or so. But
Yeah.
what you were talking about reminded me of something that Ray, the dad, says near the end. He says they've taken everything from us.
Hmm.
No, we haven't.
Mm,
Right. And
Hmm.
and going back to the idea of the fear, like I think it's sometimes the hate is of like typical femininity or like ascribed feminine traits, right? They are
mhm,
afraid
Yep.
of, and we teach little boys to be afraid of things, and then that
mhm.
manifests into large scale harm, whether it's to themselves because they can't fully realize their emotions and process it, or then to other people. And often, like, maybe they're not even aware of it, right? Like, Justin eventually has this like realization that I have caused, I'm sorry, there's another dog in the background. I have caused
We
harm.
always welcome animals and guests. Peaches,
Yeah.
welcome to the show.
Yeah, Peaches and Luca. But I talk about this with my best friend. She's parenting an 8-year-old and very intentionally like you are, Laurel. Yeah, I think it's this fear because if you're told to be strong, quick, not emotional, don't cry, well, what's the opposite, right? All those traits are typically ascribed to women.
Hmm.
So, and then that transforms into hate. Why are we so afraid these beautiful and powerful things? And why are people so intent on limiting their child to just one facet, right? It's so destructive. But
I
yeah,
think
Ray
that
says like they take everything away from us, and then just like Justin is having this moment where it's like it's not that it's just the roles of a lot of women have shifted into more independence and choice that you don't know what to do with that. And the
Hmm.
emotional labor is now on the women in your life, and you lack community. Because, like for Max, I noticed he sees the figure less and less as he moves towards his friend Philip, and
Hmm.
and is in community. I don't know if that was intentional
oh,
or not, but that's how I read it. So he doesn't see his own
Good observation.
figure.
that
He
is
doesn't
what
see his own
Oh,
figure
yeah.
right though. Yes,
until
good
he's
observation.
moving
Totally
towards.
meant that. Yeah.
Yay!
Stop.
Okay. I have like all of these little points that I'm trying to like.
Renee, you're breaking up. I'm sorry. I don't know if it is for everybody else too.
Yeah.
Hear everything you're saying.
No.
You're still robotic.
Maybe the storm's just messing with all of us.
Yeah, I
I
know.
feel
It's
like we've all had some issues.
Well, one thing that I did wanna say, like, that I another thing that I think about and kinda went into this is, the same people that are saying you've taken everything from us, it's like this replacement theory, it's like they're so angry about the changing roles and norms and things like that. They're also so for quote unquote traditional marriage. But at the same time, I've always thought it's so strange that you have boys and girls that are taught to hate everything that the other one likes, right?
Mhm.
But then get married when you're 18 and spend the rest of your life together with someone that has no commonalities with you because you've been taught to not. And you're supposed to be best friends and you're supposed to be all these kinds of things. And like people are always like, oh, what's your secret? What's your secret? It's like we don't genderize our likes. Like we like the same things. We enjoy each other as friends. We don't see each other as like, essentially like the US heteronormative view of marriage is so transactional, right? It's
Oh,
like
that's such a
It's like, okay, the man, you provide the money, the woman, you provide like everything else, you know? And it's like, the man's like, wait, why do I have to do anything but work? And, 9 times out of 10, they're not even doing that great. You know what I mean? So it's like, basically, like, why can I not be mediocre anymore? And it's like, well, of course you're pissed. You didn't have to fucking do anything ever. And you watch
Yeah.
your dad not have to do anything, and you watch your grandfather not have to do anything.
Yes.
Expect to have to do anything either.
It's a
And you
lineage of
don't
being spoiled and entitled and just, expectation. I don't want to say like silver spoon or whatever, but it's what's, you guys were talking about it earlier of like that's what's displayed. But I also think the fact that patriarchy has hurt everyone in that men
Mhm,
are not allowed to cry. And I think when boys aren't allowed to cry, it all bubbles up. I think it's gotta go somewhere, internalized anger or sadness or whatever, and it comes out towards the other people around us. If it's like you're a sissy if you're crying or you're not a full man, it's like, well then, but you're human. So what are you supposed to do with these emotions other than lash out or make it someone else's problem? So you know what I mean? A lot more now. Where's the root of,
mhm.
how this conditioning and expectation throughout society continues to cascade from generation to generation?
It does, and, like, Rebecca, like, I don't know, you may see me, like, making all these faces or whatever, because it's like, again, it's like, it's something I did not realize the extent of until I had a son.
Okay.
And when he I remember him being in his 2-year-old class. Like, his daycare was great when he was a baby, and he was with the same teachers up until they swapped him to the 2-year-old class. The thing was, like, I'm, like, obsessed with that child, always have been. So, like, every lunch hour, I would go visit him. Every single lunch hour, I would go visit him. And so I was very cognizant of what was going on in the classroom. And, like, I wasn't there to, like, observe them. I was there to hang out with my son, but it was easy for me to see what was going on. And the number of times I heard them say, and of course, like the babies are all moving up together, right? So the other little boys who were moving up with my son are ones that I'd known since they were itty bitty. I'm walking down the hall and I'm hearing some woman screaming at a 2-year-old baby boy not to cry
Oh,
because he's hit his head. And the way I came up on that woman, they did not like me. We did pull out of that daycare because there were some issues, but I was just like, how dare you tell this little boy that when he's hurt, he can't cry? And it devastated me because like, we pulled him from that daycare, started him a new one, and then lockdown happened. And he was
Okay.
home with me for 15 months. So you can, from child's development stage, he was talking then, but he wasn't really as able to express some of the things that happened. But during that 15 months, when he and I are spending all this time together and he's developing his speaking skills, he's telling me how often that happened.
mm.
He would just bring up and be like, yeah, I bonked my head and they told me I was being bad to cry. And like the way that I was like, where they live, where are
Yeah.
they at right now? Because this is, and it's like when you're the mom, you mama bear over that shit and you get so angry. But it's like, what you all were talking about too, like I keep seeing these. I live and exist and express myself through memes, and I see these ones now where it's just like, men have this reputation as being the less emotional gender because they don't classify anger as an emotion.
Oh,
Right.
shit.
And they're
Right.
Damn.
spewing it constantly, and it's just like, listen, Brett Kavanaugh, like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
yeah, women are too emotional to lead, you absolute psychopath.
As you're screaming that and spit's flying out your mouth saying they're too emotional.
Yeah,
Yes.
who's causing all of what's the number one reason why a pregnant woman dies? Murder, right?
Yeah.
Right,
Not
right.
emotional at all.
No, they're perfectly unemotional as they, annihilate their own families and things like that. Just
Mhm.
never met a more logical gender.
Well, who was that? Monique Asher told us the most likely person to be
Mhm.
murdered is a pregnant woman by their partner. That is
Yes.
That
the
is
most
so horrific.
susceptible demographic.
Well,
That's so
we had
horrific because 'cause you're
recently
so
seen that in the
vulnerable.
news when we're in
Yeah.
Northern Virginia, where he was the lieutenant governor. Now she wasn't pregnant, but he knew he had to move out by the end of the month. So he it was a murder suicide, and all these men on like Threads and X and stuff were like, "Oh man," posted
Ugh,
pictures of him,
mm.
being like, "Oh
Is it
man,"
some
and they're
sort of like tragic
and all these women
hero?
were like, "Do not fucking put that picture up." Like, he just fucking murdered his wife, and himself, and he changed the whole family, and because he couldn't get his shit together, and, like, you were just being like, "Oh, you knew him in a professional capacity," that gives you no right to, like,
And I think
celebrate when he stole this woman's life. Like, you clearly didn't know this person, and the moment that, like, he lost his role and she was becoming like this, she was a dentist and just was like, I don't wanna do this anymore," sort of
mhm.
thing, and, like, had, gone through the courts and everything and didn't like the answer, didn't like the response, couldn't deal with it, so, let's just murder.
Well, let's look at, like, historically all of the sort of, like, intense societal pressures that have happened. Like most recently, like the, 2008 economic meltdown and then COVID. And we look at all these men that when they either lost their jobs or lost their money, that's the first thing that so many of them do is they commit murder suicide. Like,
I
and
remember
then,
that during the 2007, he was like, "For the
yeah,
good of my family, I'm gonna kill them all."
yeah, because I can't pay my bills, everyone needs to die. And take a look at the stock market crash in like 1929 and the depression, Great Depression. The same things were happening. It's like, okay, that is like the most emotional response to something that can happen because anyone that has looked at the way things work, it's going to get better. Like, but you can't look at anything except what is happening to you right now, how you feel right now, and all of your decision making is based on how you feel right now. And when you feel bad, you respond with anger. And, that is the definition of an emotional person, right?
It's like
Yeah.
they're
Well, and
emasculating, right? And then
and
like,
unregulated.
where you think
Yeah,
of
Yeah.
unregulated.
women are going to say, "Every solution has a problem. We will find a way. It's
Mhm.
really hard right now, but we're gonna figure it out." I feel like that's what you hear from moms and from women, and they don't know how it's gonna get better. They don't know exactly, but it's like, I feel like you're more likely to say, like, "We're gonna figure it out." I just do, and I don't care if anyone doesn't agree with that. I just feel like women are real like, and because we've always been put in the position of, we have to do the emotional labor of figuring it out.
Right.
And I think in the book, like, I kind of like struggled with it and thought about it a little. What?
Renee was gonna say something.
Oh, I'm sorry, Renee, go ahead.
Just gonna say, like, I've been reading, about just like Abrahamic religions, pre-patriarchy, indigenous cultures, and ancient cultures, and matriarchy, which really like centers the safety of the children and the vulnerable, and we just don't do that. And there's just the conversations about female rage versus male rage, and I think like the female rage is like change, like process and change. And like the male rage is just like destroy. I'm gonna make generalizing, obviously. Like imagine, imagine a world, where we just tried to center more of that,
Yeah,
Definitely.
absolutely. Definitely. And I was, saying like the character of their mother and the fact that she kind of initiates the like final act of the book. I went back and forth on that because I didn't want it to seem like she's an idiot. You know what I mean? Because she essentially gives information to somebody. But I think that sometimes, a lot of times, we think these people realize they're in a horror movie, and you don't. This is while she has made the decision that she is divorcing him, she still assumes like this person that she was a partner with for a certain amount of time is a good person and wants the best thing for their children. And I think you see those decisions and that idea like happening so many times in real life too, where it's like, and I think that that's kind of what struck me about this thing that came out not too long ago about men that were essentially drugging their wives and then filming
God.
them and selling it. Like, I can only imagine most of these women thought they were in a good marriage, or at least in a normal one, and would never think that a threat would come from the person that they sleep next to every night. And, just because they're making decisions that maybe aren't like outside looking in, you're like, oh, why did you do that? It's like, I don't know, because I don't assume like these people are evil. And,
Yes.
then you look at that and you see just the overwhelming number of people that were involved in this. And it's like, how do you navigate a world where your spouse, the person you meet, anyone could be a danger because, like, just out in the world, in the zeitgeist, is this idea that it's okay to be a predator.
Yeah, I
And I
agree.
think, our culture passes that on to men. Like, it's reinforced in all these sometimes subtle, sometimes not so subtle ways, but I do think that our culture certainly reinforces that, and you mentioned too, just, like, how many women are creating art, and I have beef with the Oscars because I hate so much that Ryan Gosling was nominated for Barbie and
I
Margot
know.
Robbie was not,
Yeah, what
and
the
at this
fuck?
and then for, like, the director not to be nominated, and it's like, if you think about all these really incredible movies that are really iconic, have really spoken to the female experience, it's not considered art to the same degree. Like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
it never is. And so, I think that there's something really empowering about men like you in the community who are realizing there's only so much I can learn from the white male perspective. Oh, and are actually actively seeking out books written by Black women, by Latino women. And I think you and I were talking about like Sri Lankan horror and Filipino horror. And it's just, I think that all of that really comes through in your book. And I'm sorry, I think I took us a little off topic.
I don't think that's possible. That's the part of the show
Yeah.
that you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be
No, that's
doing.
a really great point. Specifically when it comes to movies, one thing that's always pissed me off. And when you look at the best actress category, okay, so often, and I don't know, like I'm a nerd when it comes to movies and stuff like that. And I read and look at, the things that people say. So often it's like, this was a really great performance. The movie wasn't that good though. Why? You look at every single performance, it's a woman's issue film. And they're like, it's not
Mhm.
that important of a movie because it's not about the Civil War or this and that, but that's a really good, intimate, raw performance, you know what I mean? And it's like,
Right.
what are you really saying? You didn't understand the movie,
Or
you
you're
know what I mean?
uncomfortable with the woman's
You're
emotions.
uncomfortable with it exactly. Another one that it's not was actually the best actor, but the year 12 Years a Slave won Best
Yeah,
Picture. He did not win Best Actor. That movie
that's
is not
true.
the best movie of the year if he's not the best actor of the year.
Right.
And it's
Yes.
because he's a black man and they wanted to give it to a white man.
Agreed.
And it's just
Yep.
like, or I don't even know who won that year. I can't like 100% say that, but it's because that is an uncomfortable movie and they had to I'm shocked they recognized it as best picture. But
Right.
it makes no sense to say. It's no different than like if, that's best performance of the year in Sinners, you're
That's where I was
telling me
gonna
how is
go.
that not the
Yeah,
best movie of the year?
I
Right.
know.
You know,
Right.
and how is that not the best direction to have an actor that plays 2 parts brilliantly? And it's just like it's just the same thing. It's like we cannot give you too much.
Right.
The white man has to be recognized
And
Yeah.
it's a
to
lack of willing
yeah.
to put yourself in that position too. It's a lack of an ability. Violet Castro said something like early on when I was in the indie scene, like she posted something about, like that writers of color, when they hear back from an editor saying, I couldn't relate to your character, what they're
Ugh,
really saying is, I'm unwilling to put myself in the position
Right.
mhm,
of, whereas I think that's so ridiculous because
yeah,
that is actually reading these stories and in particular horror is how we do relate.
Mhm.
Yes.
Like I watched, I don't know if
It's
you'll have
the
seen the
whole
movie
point.
Lucky, but starring
It
Brea
is the whole
Grant.
point.
oh, yeah,
Um but which is just a fantastic fucking film, but like a lot of men don't like it because they're like, oh, well, it's not scary. And I'm like, right, it's not because you can't relate because you're not a woman. But
mm,
like I was talking to one of my friends who like, and he's good about being able to like, you can say like, hey, no. And I said to him, I was like, that's fine. I want you to understand that this is actually a reality for 50% of the people that you know. And he just,
Right.
his eyes got big and he was like, fuck, that is scary. And I'm like, yes. And that's the thing. Are you willing? You can somehow relate to the idea of like Alien.
mm,
Okay. You can relate to that, but you
mhm,
can't relate to the idea that 50% of the people in this world are in massive danger at all times. And that danger is incredibly played down by almost everyone they meet and talk
mm.
to.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah.
It's absolutely insane.
Laurel, you made me think of my favorite nonfiction read of last year. I've been telling Adam to read it. Honestly, Laurel, what you just said makes me think you should read it too. Renee, we might have discussed, but
I
it's
think I know what you're gonna say.
Scream with Me by Eleanor
Yes.
Johnson.
Yeah,
And
Haven't
so
heard of. I'm adding it to my list right now. Scream with Me by Eleanor Johnson. Okay.
and she looks at horror movies from like the 1960s. I will forgive her for avoiding or for not including my favorite decade of horror, the 50s. Immediately turn the first page and it's like 1960 something. And I'm like, wait, but anyway,
no,
yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll just have to tell that story. But anyway,
you do the 30s, 40s, and 50s, and
right?
so
Right. And that is a good era because censorship was insane back then. Anyway, oh my God, you guys, I'm neurodivergencing. What was I
Scream
saying?
with me,
Scream
and
with
then you
Me.
Okay,
can
okay, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. But what Scream with Me I'm so sorry. I'm a mess. What
no,
Scream
I like, this is my brain. Adam has to deal with this all the time. So I'm
no,
I
like I'm like enjoying, I'm with my people.
yeah,
why do people invite me back on podcasts? This is just who I
yeah,
am. I'm doing my best. But what it does is it takes movies from the 1960s through the 1980s and it analyzes them through like the rise of feminism. So like what's
mhm,
going on in the time in feminism. And what it does is I looked at Alien and The Exorcist in a totally different way. It made me see them all as like these domestic horror situations. And so it's really, really fascinating. And Alien, I feel like she makes you look at it from the perspective of a woman and an unwanted pregnancy, perhaps, or, a
Mhm.
difficult pregnancy. And then that whole thing being forced on men, like men losing their bodily autonomy and men
uh,
being forced to almost birth this creature that
And then
they
immediately
never
weaponizing it.
immediately
mhm.
Immediately
weaponizing it.
weaponizing it.
Yes, yes.
That's
No,
great.
that's
No, I'm
awesome.
definitely going to read that. We
It's
should have another
also like
panel where we
Alien's
discuss that
also
book.
one of those, and I think of Alien, and I don't know if anyone's seen this movie, I think it's Argentinians, Where Evil Lurks, it came out a couple of years ago. It's
Yes.
really good too, where they're both like the best points of like, if you just listen to the woman in the first few minutes of this movie,
Yes.
nothing would have happened. Nothing
Right.
bad would have happened for the movie would be over, everyone would be fine, and it would all be happy. And like that is just the truth of this country. Like, so, you know,
I
Okay,
started
I just
writing a
wanna
sh
interrupt for a quick second because Laurel, I know you said you need to go and
Yes.
tell your
Yeah.
child at 8. Is it okay if we keep going,
Oh,
or do you wanna hop back on? Do you want us to just say goodbye to you then? Like, what works?
yeah, I'm gonna hop off because 'cause I'm gonna call my
yes.
kid, and then I've got some stuff to do, but yes, absolutely, please keep going, I can't wait to listen to the rest of it. Thank you very much for letting me
Uh,
participate, and
Bye,
Adam,
thank
like,
you.
Laurel.
serious I love this book, I
Bye,
love the
Laurel.
achievement of it, and I, like, just I don't know, this is probably gonna sound weird, but when I looked at the cover and I was like, "Do better," I was like, "This sounds like it's like he's kinda slamming men." Surely not, because it's written by a man, and then I read it, and I was like, "God damn, he went there on
Went
every
for it.
level." So genuinely, like, thank you because also the changes within that community are only gonna come from within.
Well,
So I
thank
appreciate it.
you, and it was an honor
It's
that you were here. I really appreciate
absolutely,
it.
absolutely, and I wanna read more from you. So, all right, everyone have a
Thank
marvelous night. It was great hanging
yes,
out.
Bye, Laurel.
Bye.
Can I
I
just
w
say
yes.
what like, if a man ever crossed Laurel and got talked to in that accent that slipped up or that
Yes!
came out that slipped out every single
Good
time she said
night.
"fuck," or she's like, "Let me tell y'all," I was like I would
Mhm.
smile every time. I'm like,
Yeah.
"Laurel's gonna get him."
Have you heard her line of where
She
she told her ex-husband, she's like, "If I'm too much, wear a fucking helmet." It's the best. It's
yeah.
the best.
That we need a sticker for that. One thing, she mentioned the cover. I did wanna say for a second here, I wanted Sophie Atkinson, who's a British illustrator. Her actual, like, for college, like, her master's and different things, she did a really excellent, like, version of Bram Stoker's Dracula that she illustrated and has all kinds of cool stuff. She did one for Poe and most recently Frankenstein. I very specifically wanted to have a female artist for the cover as well, but I think what she did with it is so awesome. Like, if I can use her for everything I do, I will because I just love her style. But, like
Can we ask you questions about the like, sorry, I just cut you off, but
yeah. No,
I
no, go
have
ahead.
some fun questions saved for you, but I didn't wanna be like,
Fun
you know,
questions? I love fun questions.
like you heartless wench. Haley, you're asking about the cover right now? Okay.
No, please.
So, I was kinda wondering, like, did you send, like, sort of, like, inspo pictures? Like, how did the idea kinda come together for you? Like, were there some initial images where you're like, "Okay, that's kinda helping me see it come together?"
So it's based on, their friend that has a very unfortunate demise in his apartment. That's,
Ron, I
yeah,
think.
Yes.
Ron,
Yeah.
who's based on a
Yeah.
real piece of shit named Ron. If you're out there listening, fuck you, you fucking suck.
Ron, he's also named after he's after another guy too.
Yeah, he's not necessarily based on, but, you can just throw a rock and hit a Ron. But I wanted to say,
But that
like,
Ron is a big fucking piece of
he's a
shit, you
piece
know
I'm
of shit.
that.
choking on my
Uh,
water.
so, Ron, I hope you're listening just so you can feel really bad about yourself right now, but you're not because you're not cool at all. So, but I wanted to get that sort of like this guy is in absolute like agony, rotting from the inside kind of thing was basically what I told her. And, I think there was like two Passovers and like she was like, here's what I got. And I was like, well, you did it. Good job. Like, she's awesome.
That's
So,
awesome.
yeah.
What I see it embodying, now that I'm looking back at it,
No, Renee, you're going all weird again.
Let's put that on a sticker. "Oh, no, Renee, you're going all weird again."
I would I wish I was going all weird. I'm usually going all
"Oh,
weird.
no, Renee, you're going all weird again."
It's
Better?
still a bit
Ish?
robotic.
Ish? I
any
don't
better?
know.
Yeah,
Yes.
there you go.
Okay. All right. Well, what I was trying to say was, in looking at the cover and the quotations I pulled out, there's some that say, "You can't run from yourself. What did you do to yourself? He kind of did it to himself." And it's feeding on selfishness. So I see that much clearer now with the being like ripped apart and the agony.
Yes, yes, he really wanted that rot to be encapsulated of just it's already inside of the body, but this entity just really, I think, rips it and pulls it out. And it's what ends up like you just read those moments of you did it to yourself.
Can I circle back to something about the male author yourself being someone to say something about this topic?
Yeah.
So yeah, we're reading a lot of the same books at different times, the four of us, and a lot of the people I've been reading are women. So are other male horror authors tackling this? Because obviously there's this rise in like domestic horror, tradwife horror, female slashers that we're seeing. Have you seen anything?
Like, Okay, I think that traditional white male authors, when you talk to them, they're always influenced by the same authors. And some of them are doing really, really good writing. But thematically, I think they still are repeating things from the 80s and 90s and 2000s. And while that can be really entertaining, and I love to see when those, very popular authors sort of lift up other voices, and that's really important too. But in terms of like doing that work, especially traditionally published, like and is hit or miss for me sometimes, like, but when he hits really hard. I think Grady Hendrix might be one of the few that is like looking at different issues besides like those regular ones. I think of like obviously Witchcraft for Wayward Girls, but even My Best Friend's Exorcism really looking at different things. But I would be really fascinated by a perspective of that trad wife or a female rage book written by a man. Like I don't think that's inappropriate for the right author to tackle that.
That makes
Yeah,
me
I think
think
it has
of
to be oh, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, Ellie.
no, no, you go ahead. I've talked so much.
No, I'm just gonna say, like, I think that depends. Like, I do understand the reservation of some, people who don't identify as female, like, writing those issues. But how interesting would it be to see a little bit more of, like, male authors tackling the male loneliness epidemic or mental health in other ways? Yeah, I don't know. I'm just curious if that might come to the forefront a bit more.
Because I think it comes down to, like, reflection, right? And whether or not that's happening, because I think, like, for myself even, like, considering myself a very empathetic person, a person that does read extremely diversely and all that things, it's like, there are so many things that are ingrained in me without my consent or as it were, that I don't even realize until they, like, come up, right? It's like, I don't realize something is a microaggression until I realize, "Wait, why did I assume that? Why did I think that?" And it's gonna take people looking at that and kind of questioning it, and it being in, a book that like, I'm just throwing names out there, not to, like, say anything good or bad about it, but it's like, it has to be in the Nat Cassidy book. It has to be in the Josh Mallerman book and million seller books to really kind of make it get bigger and bigger, but it has to start, with someone like, that is indie, self-published, whatever it is, because generally that is where you're gonna see what is happening in more mainstream books 5 years down the line.
They're good points. Haley, back to you.
I feel like my point is nowhere near as intelligent as what the two of you just said. I literally was just like, we were talking about, men writing female rage, and that kind of made me think of the X trilogy, Ty
Yes.
West. And I think some people really kind of miss the point of those. And I think for me, it's that when a woman does something really awful, like poison her husband or murder or, go on a killing spree or something, do you guys notice that, like, they have to kind of explain it away to, like, take the power from it? Like, as if,
Mhm.
like, a woman actually isn't capable of this, but it was because of, like, some sexual desire that wasn't met or whatever. And it's usually
Right.
that, which is so weird.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about, how some of those where the women are just angry. I mean, she has her reasonings too. But if you think about it, like, Pearl isn't, like, the most sympathetic devil we've ever been dealt. So
Mhm.
that kinda made me think about how I think it's okay sometimes if men do create these angry women and just let them be angry. Like, I think
I
that
think that it's funny too because it's either that or it's mental illness, right?
right, 100%.
And it's so weird. Jason, Freddy, Michael Myers, do we talk about them being mentally ill? Like, never, right?
Even though they run away from mental institutions.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, no, he's just evil. That's just who he is. I'm like,
Right, but it
well,
can't
he
be
is
that for
human.
women. It
Right.
Yeah,
can't be
She's
that for
just
exactly.
women.
Yeah.
crazy. She's a crazy woman. Put her in the attic.
Yep. Hysterical, Haley, right?
Exactly.
Well, you think about how they're like, "And you're gonna be old and no one's gonna want you, and you're gonna be childless, and you're just gonna be an old cat lady." And I'm like,
Please.
Sign me up.
well, that's the thing is I'm, like, sitting here and I'm, like,
Money for
realize,
paradise.
like, "Okay,
Yeah.
why I love having this many cats."
Can
I'm
I
like,
have a dog too?
"This is the fucking
Like,
life." Like, are
My
you serious?
Yeah, my boyfriend and I are talking about moving to Iceland and just reading horror books in our teeny tiny little town with our dogs.
I
what's
mean,
the name of that thing that they do? Isn't that Iceland?
oh,
It does that
yeah,
one?
the
Yes, yes.
Jababakaflod.
Yeah.
That's actually how me and my friends group got started, where it's basically a
You
Christmas Eve
you
tradition
get a
where
book and read all night, yeah.
you get a book and read all night and drink your well, I think it's hot chocolate, but you could drink whatever beverage you want, but it's
It
like
means
it
like
stands
book
for
flood, right?
it is book
Right.
flood, yep. But no, why wouldn't you do that? I mean, why do we have to buy into the patriarchal dream? And even just like right now, you see that they're upset that teenage pregnancy is down,
Weirdos.
Yeah, what the fuck?
Well,
and
I think they're realizing that ultimately, like, biologically, emotionally, all these kinds of things, like, men aren't necessary, right? Like,
Yeah,
and
have you seen that video where they ask women if they would live on a planet with just women, and they're like, "Yep." And, like, some of
yeah,
these women are holding hands with their husbands and, like,
yeah,
have, a very but it's like, yeah, because it eliminates this kind of threat, this extra danger, this, just
yep.
all these things.
So they just
to
have to do better because
Do
Yeah,
better.
we do
there's
want
your
there's
our
title, folks.
there's your
counterparts. There's
title, yeah.
wonderful, wonderful things. You just have to do better. Yeah. So I'm curious, Adam, what's next for
Yes,
you?
that's a good
Ah, what is
question.
next? Well, I've talked a couple times about my, weird 90s gothic death cult, Washington, DC horror that I will be writing.
Yes,
It is
please.
very personal, it is very difficult, it gets into a lot of, like, very personal, like, issues that I think people will relate to,
But
but I got
you're
this
gonna need a therapist.
I'm
No.
go yeah, I'm
Well,
gonna have to have
I was
this
gonna
is my
Adam
take your turn Teddy, Haley.
I was literally just gonna say, like, not to bring up my own shit, but my own book, but, like, you take your turn, Teddy, God damn it, that book broke my brain, so
Yeah,
if you ever just need a "Haley, I wrote all day and I'm losing my fucking mind," right? I There were days where I wrote all day and my editor's like, "Haley, you did fantastic," and I'm like, "I feel nothing." Like, you sh
No.
always reach out to me, and I'm not saying that to scare you, but
yes.
I'm saying, like,
Well,
take care of yourself,
yes.
be aware that you can get in those headspaces and it's normal, and you do have a crew that's here for you.
Appreciate that. Well, it's been a tough school year, so I don't know if I'm tackling that immediately. I think what I'm gonna do, I came up with this really weird fucking idea of a book about a man who teams up with the ghost that is haunting his house to stop an alien invasion.
That's amazing. Love it,
But
sign me up.
the ghost that haunts his house was a victim of racial police violence. So the ghost is
Okay.
like, I don't really know if I actually wanna help any of these people.
You
So
have a thing. I just figured it out. You know
what's
how
that?
I told you that Joey was like, "I trust you, Haley, because you write period pieces," and I'm like, "I do? What the fuck?" Like, it never occurred to me that I never write modern horror. You write social horror.
Yes, he
Like,
does.
because when people talk about do better, a lot of times, except for this conversation was really about the social aspect of it. But, there is that really interesting supernatural. But I do think you would vibe with Jordan Peele. I think you really like kind of using horror to explore like social injustice and historical like erasure and stuff. So I think
What a
that,
compliment.
your sweet, beautiful wife who's encouraging you to talk about your book a little more. I think that that's your wheelhouse where you really kind of open up and you start talking more is when we get
Yes.
into the social. So I think you are into social horror, even if you bring aliens and demons and all the fucking corgis.
Yeah, it's like all the other tools, but yet those are the underlying I love when authors are able to do that, where if you wanna read it surface level, it's cool, it's fun.
Right.
If you wanna look for the deeper parts, like Renee, where she was like, "I felt like he every time he got closer to his friend, he
Yeah,
got little,"
she's so
and I'm like,
smart.
"She's an English teacher, like, she got it, and don't say you weren't doing that."
It's a curse and a
Well, but
blessing.
also
We talked about it.
he was also rubbing out like, the closer Philip got to Max, he started seeing him even though Max was seeing him less, Philip did see it, whereas before he did not, which kinda shows that, whether you want it to or not, it does have an effect on everyone around you too, right?
Yeah.
Negatively, unfortunately, so
Well, I just wanted to say that there is one little book rec, as you guys were talking about that. The book is called The End of Men by Christina Sweeney Baird.
if
Mm.
only.
And it's basically think of like a COVID like event that only kills men. And
Oh, wow.
so basically all these scientists are trying to like sequester their little boys, like all things, because it wipes out the majority. And it's like, okay, and how does the earth heal? How does it not? How do women fare? How do they not? Like it explores all of it. It was so good.
You and Adam basically curate my reading list anyway, so
I look
So
at you
many
on
freaking
Goodreads and I'm like,
books.
I'm like, "Oh, she's reading that book. Oh, that's great. She's gonna love
Yeah.
that book."
You guys mark it as, like, 5 stars or even, Rebecca, you'll mark something as one to read, and I'm like, "I want to read that too."
It's such
There's
a
like 7 updates on Goodreads every single day. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, man, they are killing it. They're reading so many
I'm
books."
sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
I say, like, I work part-time. I work 25 hours, and I consider trying to read a book a day part of my other job. So,
That's amazing.
yeah. So
And look at the influence you guys have had. I tell Adam all the time, you guys have introduced me to the most amazing authors, stories that I don't know that I ever would have found or thought would have been up my
100%.
alley, but then I just trust you guys.
well, thank you.
Yeah,
That's such a compliment, and I just wanna say that, like, as we wrap up in the social things and we're talking about, I was saying to when I chatted with Alyssa today for a minute of what and she was said, we always are trying to look at our stats to make sure that we're holding ourselves
Mhm.
accountable to our mission, which is to be diverse throughout, from self-published to traditional, and to really try to elevate the lesser where,
Yeah.
essentially be really careful about how many white men we have on the show. Not that,
Right.
but
You'll
just
be happy to know that
this is what I want to say.
yes, season 2 from, like, the beginning to everyone that and we have basically our slate until Halloween. We are 88% non-white man guests.
That's amazing. That really is
And the
that's
ones that
incredible.
are still fit into another category of
Yes.
like,
And you
not
guys don't
straight.
have assholes on,
Yeah.
like, so even when you have white men on, you have people who are willing to sit there and listen to this critique and to hear women say these things about men and aren't immediately, like, aggressive, or angry
Yeah.
'cause the
Yeah.
and so I think that also speaks to who you guys are,
Well,
like,
thank
the
you.
energy you bring.
And we're really
Adam.
starting to get into like different types of where you were saying like the Sri Lankan heart. So,
Right.
we've
Yeah,
done
we
the
can't wait. We
Hawaiian, the
actually
Palestinian,
we
like
get to meet Daphne.
Oh, I love her.
but
I
there's a
got
We're gonna
to
lot
try
of
to be
just
like, "Hey, you guys,
yeah.
you wanna come talk to us?"
But it is
I
so much to learn when you realize,
Right.
"My god, like, I didn't know these things,"
Right.
you're
It's
learning history in a way that you've never and it's just that's the power of the book, and I mean,
Yes.
that's the thing is, like, if you wouldn't normally pick it up, like,
Yeah.
that is the goal of the podcast of saying, "Give this
Right.
type of person a try."
And I think
Right.
that the one thing that I will say that I was very, very lucky to grow up in Washington, DC. My best friend, like when I was in, I don't know, 2nd to 5th grade, my best friend was half black, half Filipino. And another friend was Cambodian and Indonesian and, Afghani and all these kinds of things. And so, like, when that's normalized, like,
Yeah.
you realize like this work we make our world so small and it's not small and there's so many beautiful things around if you just say I'm going to be uncomfortable for a couple of minutes, okay, like I might walk into a place and I feel like everyone's looking at me and I don't understand and I don't know what's going on, but guess what, be curious, be kind, and it's not gonna feel that way for very long. And that was my whole childhood. And like honestly, like
Right.
you just gotta like take a chance and you're gonna find the most beautiful books and experiences that you're gonna ever have, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And then if I could, before I forget, because I love you guys and you're so patient with my insane brain that I can never seem to get a handle on. I wrote down 2 comp titles for Do Better. And so one of them, sorry, Adam, I'm sure you've heard me say a million times. And then one of them's a little less obvious, I feel like, but like in this, I'm just sorry, I'm prefacing too much. So I promise I will get better at this whole speaking thing.
No.
So
You're
my
doing great.
I
Yeah,
love
I'm
you
like, I
guys.
don't know what you're saying. I'm having a great time. Just
Oh, you
keep
guys are so
going.
We're
sweet.
gonna replace that with a robotic voice saying, I am really good at this. I
Yeah,
am a
I'm gonna
great
go downstairs. I'm gonna tell he's gonna be like, "How did it go?" I'm gonna be like, "I talked too much. I messed up."
No,
talk
you
too
did.
much on this thing where I'm supposed to talk.
You're right, you're right. Okay, so my first one is called Squirming All the Way Up by
Oh,
Mr.
Joey.
Joey Powell. Have you guys read that one?
Oh
We
yeah.
have, yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's a great comp. I forgot about that for a moment.
Like, the brothers situation, it's so spot on how, like, if one of them learns to not be an asshole, it's always just one of them at first, and then it's the other
Yeah.
one trying so hard, and then it's something that, like, shit has to hit the fan before the
Yep.
one's like, "Oh, you might have been right."
Yep.
Yes, and I think the social horror aspect of that too, or like the religious social,
Yeah.
like it's
Absolutely,
so
absolutely. My next thing, hey, bear with me, it's not like I'm not saying you have a clown, but you have the social horror. You have, like, the religious commentary. There's definitely commentary on, like, kind of the toxicity that we spread through man to man from generation to generation, and that would be Clown in a Cornfield.
My gosh. Okay, that's really interesting. I really love that. I think people don't give
Adam Caesar.
Adam Caesar in general, but that book, like, that entire series is,
It's so
holy shit, social horror
horror,
brilliant.
yeah. Yeah,
Like,
and people
as
it's
it goes along.
they always mention Friendo, which is great, but people are like, "You want clown horror, read this." I'm like, "Okay," but at the same time, like, the social horror behind it,
That's what I thought.
and
It was, like, all about the town
And the
and the
second
bullshit that the
Right.
town
Well, and
perpetuates.
then the second book with the social media, like, is so incredible, and then the third with bringing in religion, like, and I
Yeah.
would say, like, Quinn, everyone and I am obsessed with and love and take this as no anything but Jade Daniels till the day I die, but Quinn deserves
Yes.
to be right there. Like, the shit she goes through, and I just got Clown in a Cornfield 4, so it's perfect timing. I can't wait to read it, but I love that. I will take that any day.
Yeah, and just, not trying to I think I've already done this to you, but I'm on your wife's team where we force you to talk about your book more. So
Right.
I would like to see some content, even if you say, "Haley Newlin said my book is like this book and this book," because more people need
I'll
to know, like, that this
That is
is
a great
I
suggestion.
guess I'll try because kind of, it was hard to maintain 2 social media accounts, so I went
yeah,
down to just a pod, and so I'm like, "Is it appropriate to talk about my book
is
on the
appropriate.
podcast?"
You know
Like,
what? I do it with
yeah,
Twins and Talent, and my argument is, "Hey, I was our first client. We didn't know it was gonna work until we tried it with me."
That's
okay.
amazing, I love
Sounds
that.
good. Well, I'll, like, migrate all those because Laurel, if I was nice enough to have a lot and I also very specifically asked female horror authors to blurb, that
Yes.
talked, and you guys have all been wonderful about that.
So you could have a whole series where it's like, "I'm posting this today because Haley told me to get my stupid book out here."
Yeah.
Yeah, we should do a week of Haley Newlin told me to post this. Haley Newlin told me I had
Yeah.
to post this.
And Renee, maybe for him, we can like, what's your he needs to have Benny and everything, like a whole corgi?
Yes, corgis
Yes, I know
unite.
we didn't really talk about the corgi, but, like, I love Benny because Peaches I know exactly about corgis. I was gonna say something about the books. Now, I haven't read it yet, but Robbie Dorman has a book called Conquest. It's about, like, this gang of werewolves and, like,
Oh.
it's, like, asserting dominance and, like, sexism, and I feel like I saw him say something about, like, toxic masculinity, so maybe that is also a book in a
Yes,
similar vein.
and I love Robbie. Like,
We
I think
do.
his Words of Christ in Red is one of the single most underrated novels of the last few years. I think it is absolutely brilliant.
This is something that with having all of you on, it has felt like I have been sharing with Adam that I've just wanted more community, more interaction, more just like when you're talking with the author, it's wonderful, but you don't get to hear like the feedback and get the immediate reactions and things. And so I'd really love to have more of these like panel type conversations and them being more like live, not just on the recording here
Right.
for people to be able to come on and join. But it would be fun to come up with some of these like, core topics and think of like, okay,
Yeah.
who is the mixture of people that need to be on for this or ones that, like we were and this is a credit to Alyssa where she's like, "No, bring the white man on, but
Mhm,
Yeah.
make him talk about toxic
mhm,
masculinity because
mhm.
otherwise, how do you have you're never gonna get those followers.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, you're
Right.
to be exposed to that.
And one thing that I wanted to say, it's like I think of the horror community as being very inclusive and diverse and
Right.
all that kinds of stuff. But unfortunately, just looking at our own numbers for things,
I said that with her today.
a black male author gets about half of others
Yep,
and a black female about a third. And it's like
Yeah.
you
it's
see
Do
it
you mean,
easily.
yeah,
like,
it's not a
listeners
coincidence.
for your
Like
podcast? What do you
listeners, views, likes,
Oh,
those kinds
Comments,
of
all
things.
of
Then I
that's
that.
look at
awful
yeah.
because some of your best episodes feature those authors.
I
I
can't
Yeah.
wait
we
to listen to the one
listen,
with Nina
It's not gonna
Vale.
it doesn't affect what we do, but it's
it's
very
frustrating to be
interesting
like,
to
wow,
see.
they are very like
Yeah.
it and whether it's known or not known behavior, I mean, these are the
Mhm.
stats. And it's interesting because, you're thinking, Renee, I'm glad you said that because to me, like when Adam and I get off the podcast, we'll be like, wow, that was just like we feel like we've been taken to church or to school
Mhm.
or just like, it's like this was amazing. And then it just you see like the likes, the comments, the share, it's kind of like, okay. And that's a shame, and I don't know if that's part of that's just, like, a popularity thing,
And
Maybe
well, I mean,
panels
you
will
see it
help.
what's that?
Maybe the panels would help.
I
you
think
know?
it
That's what,
would.
yeah,
I do
and
think.
because it's all I kinda touched on this too, Haley, talking to you a few days ago too, that, like, Listen to Your Sister, Nina Vial's first novel is brilliant, and
Right.
Goodreads, 3.13, you
Bullshit.
know?
Absolute bullshit.
And, like, then you'll look at a white male author's first book that, I'm not trying to be rude, is objectively not as good. So it's not as
Right.
low it's like, 3.89, 4.1,
Yeah.
and it's just like, there's a reason for it, and, you
Yeah.
might say and almost all of them is like, I exactly what Laurel had said, which is, "I don't identify with the character," and it's like, "That's the fucking point, you
Yeah.
jackass."
Have you guys, heard Florence and the Machine song, One of the Greats?
No.
But I
Yes,
love
and I
Florence.
saw her in concert a couple weeks ago,
Yes!
and it was
Yes.
so
Oh my
good.
gosh, but she speaks to that in this song
Yes.
about how a woman can put so much fucking work into something. That makes me think of Barbie again.
Yep.
And, a man can put in half the fucking effort and he's a scholar, he's an icon, he's an artist. And the lyric is, "It must be nice to be a man and make boring music just because you can."
Oh,
And
Love
she
it.
like
Love it.
and, like, even, like, Coachella, Justin Bieber, no hate, but he's up there on his fucking Mac showing YouTube videos, and Sabrina Carpenter, my god, has, like, the most elaborate set, and if she was up there on her computer, people would be like, "What is she doing? Like, she's so lazy, she's not
Yes.
didn't
putting
he
on
get,
a
like,
show."
wonderful reviews for that and stuff? Like,
Yes,
people
yeah, and they're
like,
like, "Oh my god, he played younger him on YouTube and sang
yeah,
along to it," and I'm like,
it's like,
"That's
I would
awesome,
want my
but
money back.
Sabrina."
It is so crazy, and, just even the song, with Taylor Swift, the "If I Was a Man," "The Man," uh,
Yes.
it is, it's all those things, but, I feel like these are great comps. I love that we've had this moment. It encourages me to say, like, I think that people want more panels, they want more live things where they can chime in, they get more access to this, and it's great when you can go to an event and hear a panel or you pay tickets to go to hear an author speak, but I think having something like this dynamic and being able to build off of the community and having it that it is free to come in, and Adam and I were talking about, having, like, a charity affiliated with it. So, like with, David Simmons, where it's about getting books into prisoners,
Mhm.
or
Yeah.
just trying to say, "Look, we would love for you to make a donation. We do all this for free, but, like, let's do something good with it
Yep.
as well," when even though it is free to attend it. But I just feel like I don't wanna I need these types of discussions. I read these things alone, and I wanna talk more about it with people, and I don't necessarily wanna join a book group, right? Like
Yeah, annotating has also helped me a lot with that because, like, sometimes even just and I told Adam, and he made me feel so much better about it, he's so sweet. I have a signed Stephen Graham Jones book with sprayed edges, and it's a hardcover, and don't hate me, I annotated it,
I'm
and
sorry,
I
Buffalo
I'm
Hunter
sorry,
Hunter.
I'm sorry, Adam made you feel better about that?
he did, because I told him, I said, like, "I'm committing, like, the
Wow.
ultimate book crime," but I have found that as someone who really struggles with, dissociation, and I find that I'm retaining more, I'm
Well,
reading so much more,
I think it's
um
your fucking book.
Yes,
You should do it
yes.
with it what you want and
Uh-huh.
make it your own. But I'm gonna assume that
Look, this
Adam.
is different.
No,
It's
wait,
not the
no.
same. It's not the same.
I'm gonna assume, Adam, that as you've credited that I've helped you to do better, that he was like, no, no, you can't even read the signed book.
It was not a signed book. It was a hand annotated Rachel Harrison So Thirsty. She annotated. I'm
And
like,
then I was like, how am I
Oh, I'm so
supposed to know what
jealous
the
you
fuck
have
she
that.
said?
yeah.
How am I supposed to know what she said? I'm just supposed to be happy about the fact that it's annotated. Wouldn't that be rude to not read what she took to annotate
Listen,
the whole?
Yeah,
I see your point.
but
You ever watch that guy that like had the whatever that shop is where he has the like 14th century Gutenberg Bible and shit? Like that's
yes.
how I
Oh,
feel like,
yeah, 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 the
I
Bible
think
guy.
about he says don't use the gloves and stuff like that. So I think
And
Yeah.
I returned it with like, but now I was like, this is my fucking book too, Adam. I'm gonna read it as well. It's addressed to both of us.
So listen,
Right.
here's the thing. Here's the thing that has happened with every Rachel Harrison book. I don't know why, but whenever I'm reading her book and I've been lucky enough to get all the hardcovers signed by her, the day of, day before, or right when before I'm doing it, one of my dogs will go outside and run in whatever mud they can find and
Oh my
then jump
god.
up on me while I'm reading it.
Or
And it
they'll
just
like
never
run into
fails.
the bookcase and then it
Yeah.
gets marked somehow. Yeah, that's not
So does
me.
that mean you have such sharp teeth with, like, muddy paw prints preserved?
There's
Yes.
something wrong with each one of them.
Every single one has something on it. I'm like,
Doing.
"I promise I did not wipe my ass with these pages." That's
Thing.
That's okay.
like,
I mean,
I'm like, I'm
it's
just like,
part
"Oh,"
of your life. It's a
Like,
living
photos, yeah,
finger talk.
slow-mo.
But
Yeah.
no, I think you should be able to enjoy those moments and look at those things. I'm glad that you did that because it's like it is such a special book that it's already,
Well, I don't know if you like, I John Adams, obviously, our 2nd president, he was a huge annotator, and they say, like, you can look at his books now, and it's actually really, like, fascinating, tells you a lot about him because it says that he basically has conversations and arguments with his books in the margins,
I
and
feel like that's me.
right? I love that. I think that, like, to do that, they say that to write something down while you read it, it makes you remember it more, and I know that when you annotate a book, like, that book becomes part of who you are. So,
Yeah,
I think that's great.
and it just it kinda makes you, like, really sit with details sometimes, because 'cause I'm like, "This stands out to me, like, I'm gonna underline this," and then I kinda ask myself, "Why?" And so, yeah, that makes me read a little bit more slowly, but it also has made me way more excited to read, and what I started to say was when I was annotating The Buffalo Hunter, that's the one I did it with. People are gonna cringe so hard and be like, "Haley Newlin defiles books." But, anyway, I found that it was when even just talking about it with Adam, I was able to actually have more of a conversation instead of just being like, "Yes, it's so good, like, changed my life." Like, that's how I am for a lot of times, but when I actually sit with the thoughts and sit with the lines that speak to me, like, I can actually quote from that book now just because of, like, the little
amazing.
things. Yeah, like, it's so anybody out there, this is your permission to write little
Write
notes in
it
your
up.
books.
So I am curious. I know right now I'm seeing on your Goodreads, like earlier, that you are reading Blood Slaves
Yep.
by Marcus Redmond.
I am.
I felt like that is such a comparable book to Buffalo Hunter Hunter. Um,
Yes, and
I
it's
am like, it is like a true. First of all, the first time I read Buffalo Hunter Hunter was my first Stephen Graham Jones, and I was like, "How is this hard?" And I didn't realize, like, I expected, it to be like, and it was gory. It was like reading the most rich, like, history book
yeah.
to me.
Renee, have you read that one?
Sorry, I actually have not.
Okay,
It's on my
oh,
radar because
We're
obviously
giving you the
everybody
list, yeah.
talks about it.
but I felt like Marcus's book with what he's doing with Blood Slaves was, it's like if you like Buffalo Hunter Hunter, you need to read this because he's doing the same thing, but it's in the lives of African Americans and slaves and how to take it back and just, very similar thematic in the way that it's written and that it's very sobering and it's there's gore just like in Stephen Graham Jones, but it's not, your typical what you would think of like a scary vampire.
Yeah,
It's
right.
it's the life sucking out of and looking at how to it does take on a lot of social aspects. So
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
curious to see what you think when you finish it.
Yeah, and I definitely got that kind of vibe. I did think of Hunter, when I was reading it or as I'm reading it. Another thing too is before I read before I read, Blood Slaves, I read Bone of My Bone by Joanna Van Veen, which is fantastic,
Mm.
but right before that, I read Burn Down Master's House,
Oh,
and so I was like I read Burn Down Master's House and was like, "I'm really glad that I read The Reformatory," because I felt like some details from The
exactly.
Reformatory made some
Yes.
details, and that hit really hard. Well, now that
Right.
I'm reading Blood Slaves, I'm like, "I'm really glad that I read Burn Down Master's House," and
Agreed.
so
Yes.
like, now after this, I'm gonna go to the 2nd Blood Slaves, and then I'm gonna go to Lone
Yes.
Women, and I find that there's
I love
just
that one too. Absolutely love that one.
Lone
Here's the
Women
thing.
is so good. Oh my gosh.
really on my it's on the top TBR bookcase, you guys, not a shelf, a bookcase.
Yeah, I right? So, here's the thing, when I love that you're exposing yourself and leading on to each one of these and try I felt like I had very similar things of like, well, because I read almost the same pattern as you, like, I read The Reformatory, then I read Burned Down Masters, then I read The Blood Slaves, and it's like, it deepens the experience for each
Yeah,
one, how it's leading on that, and also that
Like
if you
the
guys
Nickel Boys, yep.
the Nickel
yes, I read
Boys.
that one too, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much that you continue to learn and you think it's hit the whole surface, but it's not. But yeah, I mean, Clay came by the time we were done interviewing him for Burn Down Master's House. He's like, I guess I did write a horror novel.
Yes, and I think too, there's just something really, shit, I lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry. I don't know why I'm the way that I am. I'm gonna continue to work on it.
Don't. Never stop being
Haley
I
you.
know.
Newlin,
I'm
can you
like,
Haley Newlin,
why?
I'm scolding you in my teacher voice. Can you stop hating on yourself?
Love you
Yeah,
guys, but I mean, the stuff happens to me, and I'm like, "Ooh, I had a good thought here," and I start to say it, I'm like, "Just stop, you don't know where you're going anymore."
my life. But
Yeah,
The
you guys
journey. I
are
wanna say something
amazing.
about the annotations real quick because I saw it
yes.
today on Instagram. So there's a Black creator, her name is Keisha, but her handle is the Blurred Library. I think some of you probably follow her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, she was saying that every year she kind of revisits her annotations from 2 books. One is Dawn by Octavia Butler and then Jane Eyre.
Wow.
And just to kinda see, like, how she has changed throughout the year, and I thought that was so interesting and something, Adam, I'm gonna apply in the class with, like, a short story with students next year
Mhm.
and kinda come back at the end of the year. But, yeah, I think, like, write in your books, do what you wanna do with it because, it's your book and it helps bring it to life and become part of you, and it obviously, it does help the sciences, it does help with, retention and connections and things like that.
Yeah. It absolutely does, and my copy of Blood Slave, so I guess I shouldn't say I've only done it once. I have now annotated, I believe, 3 hardcovers.
Love it.
It does feel a little bit like a sin. It's hilarious how the first half of the book, my pencil markings are so light and just so gentle, and then midway through, I'm like, "What the fuck is this guy's problem?" And I'm, like, stabbing through the page with my pencil.
I love it. I love
I
it.
like just doing this show, I've taken to, like, having a journal for books so that I can,
Yeah,
when I'm talking, and kinda do it that way, and I definitely feel like it just kind of enhances the whole experience because, like, we think of books as a one-way street, but they're really not. Like, they
right.
are a conversation that you're having, like, with the author, and I think that's something that we've noticed, like, as we do this, it's like, you do like, I don't mean this in a weird parasocial way, but, like, a writer spends usually about a year or so writing this book. And so, like,
Yeah,
you're in the head, of that person. And it's like you do know a part of them,
yeah,
after
yeah.
you've read their books, which is why it's so beautiful and why it's so brave, like, for people to do this thing in the first place. I know that, like, as I was going to be doing this, like, why I probably drag my feet for a long time is it's like, yeah, I don't know if I want to be seen like that or like,
And then we made you turn your camera on. Let us see you.
and that kind of thing, and I'm sure it works for you guys too for that way, but it's also such a rewarding thing to be like, "Oh, you like what you saw in there," like, it's such a beautiful thing to make art and to
Yeah. I think
touch
being a
people and
writer is
yeah.
never wanting to do the thing, never wanting to write the book, never wanting to do the interview, but every time you finish it, you feel a million times better.
Yeah. Well, that's perfect.
It's amazing. That's
Well,
amazing.
I don't think we can end on a better note than that.
Yes, I appreciate you, all of you.
I
Thank you for
appreciate you guys.
supporting,
Yes, I
and
appreciate all of
Adam, we
you.
expect to see you promoting your book, and we expect more annotations and more Goodreads reviews from everybody and more panel interviews to come.
Hashtag Haley made me do it.
I
And
love
more
it.
Stickers,
more
another
features.
sticker.
Or
Yes,
t-shirt.
exactly.
Someone
Thank
tell
you
Joey
all.
Powell to put that on t-shirt.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you all. I hope you have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.